First at 4, some decent rain falling in parts of southeast Michigan. It's going to be with us for a bit longer, but we're tracking some great changes for the weekend. We'll dive into it coming up. Karen?
Also, first at 4, President Biden takes action to protect a woman's access to abortion, what he's doing and what he cannot do. And here's Paula.
Her parents are sacrificing themselves to keep their children safely out of Ukraine. So how do you think a 14-year-old feels in a strange country?
I hope everything will end and I will just go back to see my family.
It's her courageous journey to Michigan.
Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News First at 4 starts now.
Good afternoon, I'm Karen Drew. First at 4, we're keeping an eye on the radar. It is a mess out there. Some of you may have been caught in the recent downpours this afternoon, and we are watching the impact on your evening drive. Let's get right to meteorologist Brett Collar for the very latest. Brett.
Yeah, we've been seeing some of these weaker outflow boundaries the past couple of hours that they've been interacting with each other and helping to pop up some of these stronger showers over the last couple of hours. So far, haven't really seen any lightning or thunder here in southeastern Michigan. There was some out near Lansing, but we'll zoom in a little bit closer and you can see some of the heavy rain falling west side of Detroit over towards Canton, Salem. But how about the very heavy rain falling in parts of Ann Arbor? You can see the deeper, darker reds out that way. It is coming down fairly heavy. Not moving, though, a whole lot, so there's going to be some localized flooding issues for those of you that get this heavy rain. Slowly fading in intensity these next couple of hours, but we dry out this evening and get ready for what should be a great weekend. We'll dive into it coming up in just a bit.
All right, thank you, Brett. This is President Joe Biden signing an executive order to protect abortion rights where he can. The president also has a message for women who feel their rights are being rolled back. Kimberly Gill in the newsroom. So, Kim, tell us about this executive order.
Yeah, so hi, Karen. Good afternoon. We'll start with what this order cannot do. How about that? It cannot restore the right to abortion in states where it's currently outlawed or severely limited. That's changed, thanks, of course, to the Supreme Court ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade back on June 24th. Instead, the order formalizes instructions to the Departments of Justice and Health and Human Services to push back on growing abortion limitations. The president wants federal agencies to make sure women can cross state lines to access abortion services, to safeguard access to abortion medications and emergency contraception, and also to protect patient privacy, among other things. The president says the fastest way to turn things around is to pass a national law to codify Roe versus Wade, but he needs more support in Congress to make that happen, and that's up to voters.
I don't think the court, or for that matter, the Republicans who for decades have pushed the extreme agenda, have a clue about the power of American women. But they're about to find out, in my view. It's my hope and strong belief that women will, in fact, turn out in record numbers to reclaim the rights that have taken from them by the court.
Of course, many women and men are fighting at the state level to limit abortion access now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned. Here in Michigan, a 1931 law making abortion illegal has been put on hold while opponents argue that it's unconstitutional. We are following each side of the battle as new developments happen. For now, though, Karen, we'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Sure. Ford Motor Company putting another 100,000 drivers on alert for a possible fire danger and expanding an earlier recall. The new recall covers certain 2020 through 2022 Ford Escapes, Mavericks, and Lincoln Corsair vehicles with 2.5-liter hybrid plug-in hybrid engines. In another action, Ford has added another 27,000 vehicles to a recall first announced back in May after more reports of fires. That recall affects 2021 Ford Expedition and Lincoln Navigator SUVs. The company is advising customers to park those vehicles outside and away from structures until repairs are completed. Tonight at 6, we are going to dig into what a recent series of recalls really means for Ford. You can read more about the recalls on the homepage of clickondetroit.com. Federal prosecutors are digging into the finances of former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, trying to nail down if he's paying back money he owes taxpayers and the IRS. After his criminal convictions, Kilpatrick still owes $1.7 million. He started various business ventures since his prison sentence was commuted by former President Donald Trump. Most recently, he started asking for donations of $8,000 each to buy a new home in a gated community in Orlando, although that request seemed to have been taken down. The U.S. Attorney's Office calls the investigation routine, but the efforts could help prosecutors seize money or maybe garnish income or tax returns. The Local 4 News team is working to learn more about the young man who shot and killed Detroit police officer Lauren Courts 2 days ago. We are learning the gun used was legally sold at Action Impact Firearms and Indoor Gun Range. That's over in East Point, but we're not sure at this point who actually purchased the gun. Local 4 investigators, one of the first to report about 19-year-old Amani Davis's run-ins with the law in East Point over the past year and a half. Among the incidents, a warrant was issued for a misdemeanor listed as a family offense. That was on May 30th. Police believe Davis may have been committing suicide by cop, given his behavior on July 6th and his troubled past. Local 4's Rob Maloney digging further, and he'll have a live report for us when you join us at 5. A Mount Clemens man now faces more than 24 charges in connection with a barricade situation back on July 4th. 64-year-old Dwayne Lester is accused of firing at officers and faces a series of assault and weapons charges. The drama started before noon on Monday when a neighbor says Lester was threatening her with a gun after a conversation about his dog. Happened in the area of Clinton Street in Gratiot. There was a standoff with sheriff's deputies for about 7 hours until officers were able to arrest him. Lester received an apparent gunshot wound to the arm. He remains in custody. President Biden says he feels stunned and deeply saddened by the shooting death of Japan's former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The shooting played out in public and was captured on video as he was giving a campaign speech. Abe was shot from behind. He was rushed to the hospital, but he could not be saved. Police quickly arrested a suspect at the scene of the attack. Japan has some of the strictest gun laws in the world, but police say it looks like the gun that was used actually appeared to be a homemade gun. Abe was Japan's longest-serving prime minister before stepping down in 2020. He was 67 years old. The United States is sending more military equipment to Ukraine, even as Russian President Vladimir Putin claims his country has barely started to fight. Today, the U.S. announced it's sending another $400 million worth of equipment, including 4 more advanced rocket systems. Ukraine badly needs those weapons to fight for the Donbas region. Russian troops are in control of one of the 2 provinces that make up the area. This new assistance is the 15th package of American military weapons and equipment sent to Ukraine. About 50,000 Ukrainian Americans live in Michigan. They're watching the conflict closely and trying to help loved ones. Today, the story of a 14-year-old girl who left everything behind, landing here in Metro Detroit. Paula Topman in Hamtramck with the story of a teenager's journey and her sacrifices. Paula, it's so hard to imagine what she's going through.
Hard to imagine and really hard to listen to, but it's important to do so. Let me just give you a sense of what we're talking about. So here's Russia. We've all heard about Mariupol, lots of fighting there. This is where Zlata is from. You can see right here, she says there was shelling and bombing there, I think a day and a half ago. Lots of Ukrainians coming to Michigan looking for safe harbor, but just because they make it here doesn't mean they feel safe. At 14 years old, Zlata has seemingly already lived a lifetime.
It's a lot, isn't it?
A perilous escape from Ukraine with her older brother, with a plan hatched by her parents to spirit them to safety. An aunt going to school in Indiana, but doing a summer internship in Hamtramck on cultural preservation at the Ukrainian American Archives and Museum.
We were thinking about finding a safe place for them to be, and so that they can continue education.
Zlata and her brother were able to get to the United States on student visas, but the trade-off was leaving mother and father behind.
It's really very hard being here because I wasn't really ready to move here because I'm only 14 and I'm not ready to leave my parents, to leave my home because of the war.
But with her aunt, she does important work at the museum, scanning cultural documents to keep them a safe part of Ukrainian history that the Russians are busy wiping out. And so Zlata is courageously forging ahead because everything she knows aside from her aunt and her older brother remain literally in the line of Russian fire.
Like, it's very hard. And I'm here, and I don't feel like I'm in safety because my family can die, and I don't really know what should I do. I just can't help them. And they decided to send me here because they wanted to save me. But they couldn't go with me.
And when a 14-year-old aches, much of the world aches with her.
I hope everything will end and I will just go back to see my family.
Zlata has a summer internship here at the museum. When school starts, she'll head off to Indiana. She has a place at a private school there, but as you can see, all she really wants to do is be home with her parents, and we can all certainly understand that. Very, very courageous to tell her story to us, Karen.
Most definitely. Thank you, Paula, for bringing us her story.